If you call a spade, you'll get labeled all types of names. Imagine Scott Agnes criticizing South Carolina and Asia Wilson fans for going after Caitlin Clark during her rookie season. Imagine the backlash.
Imagine being so triggered by cheering fans that you write a whole essay like you're auditioning for Darth Vader's PR team. Well, one Indiana Fever reporter just decided Caitlin Clark's supporters are the dark side. Yes, like actual Star Wars villains with foam fingers. In today's episode of Journalists Gone Wild, we dive into the viral meltdown that has everyone wondering, did the WNBA suddenly turn into a Marvel movie? So sit back and relax. This drama's hotter than Caitlin's three-point percentage.
Yesterday, in an article, he put something in there, and I don't know if he thought it was going to be a side note to his article, but you cannot call Caitlin Clark fans the dark side of the fandom. No, that wasn't the greatest or smartest idea in the world.
Picture this. Caitlin Clark, who single-handedly dragged women's college basketball out of obscurity and into primetime TV, is now the subject of a hit piece written by what can only be described as a sports journalist with the emotional stability of a deflated basketball. And not just any article. Oh no, we're talking about a full-blown viral tantrum in keyboard form, aimed not at Caitlin, because that would be too obvious, but at her fans. You know, the people who dared to support her. How criminal.
This is really disappointing from a journalist so closely linked to the Indiana Fever organization. This is really, really disappointing, and it's really concerning in my opinion, because it is painting a 23-year-old on their team who is currently injured.
Apparently, this reporter, let's call him the torchbearer of trash takes, has decided that anyone who cheers for Caitlin Clark is part of, wait for it, the dark side. That's right. Move over, Darth Vader, because wearing a number 22 Fever jersey and clapping during three-pointers is apparently now a Sith-level offense. All we need is John Williams playing ominous music every time someone buys her merch.
Imagine Scott Agnes writing an article about the Reese's Pieces and all their negative vitriol, shout out to L. Duncan, that's been targeted to Caitlin Clark. Imagine the backlash he would receive. But what's the safe way out? What's the safest way to big up the Indiana Fever? Well, you tear down Caitlin Clark's fans.
Meanwhile, the Indiana Fever management is still out here doing the absolute most of nothing. They've been stumbling around like they're stuck in a Scooby-Doo episode, trying to solve the mystery of why Caitlin Clark fans are mad when it's obvious. You've got the most electrifying rookie in WNBA history playing in a league where the officiating makes the WWE look like Harvard Debate Club.
Listen, man, this is very sad, very disappointing. It's disgusting that Caitlin Clark has to be subjected to this nonsense. And enough's enough. That's the bottom line. That's the bottom line. She needs to come out and draw the line in the sand. And it would not shock me if at some point, man, Caitlin Clark is just done with this.
Let's start with the league, shall we? The WNBA, in all its glorious wisdom, has managed to take Caitlin Clark, the woman who dropped 40-point triple-doubles like she was passing out Skittles in Iowa, and placed her into a system where referees seem to have attended the How to Be Petty in 3 Easy Calls training course. Every game feels like watching a Shakespearean tragedy directed by someone who only reads Twitter arguments.
But yesterday they also announced the skills competition for the WNBA All-Star team. And she didn't make that either. So you argued she wasn't good for the Olympics. Your argument, though I don't buy it, but it was your argument, women's basketball, that she would be a distraction. So isn't the perfect place to put her in the skills competition?
The NCAA treated Caitlin like a phenom. The WNBA treats her like a freshman at Mean Girls High. If the NCAA was a supportive guidance counselor cheering her on from the sidelines, the WNBA is Regina George asking her why she's so obsessed with being talented. We went from Game of the Week coverage to Game of the Weekend if nobody else is available. Because clearly, showcasing your most marketable athlete is a terrible business strategy. But let's pivot to this reporter. A man so allergic to accountability, he probably has to carry an EpiPen every time someone mentions the word objectivity. You see, he's not just reporting anymore. No, he's educating us. According to him, if you support Caitlin Clark, you're clearly toxic. Not because you're loud or rude or harassing people, but because, well, you exist. It's the kind of journalism that makes you question whether he got his degree from a cereal box. This is the same guy who, when called out for ignoring obvious foul play against Clark, pivoted harder than a yoga instructor during a power outage. But of course, accuracy is optional when you're writing from a bunker of bitterness.
Winners of 7 of 9. The Fever are playing connected.
This man has endured so much hate, he says. Really? Because last time we checked, Caitlin Clark has been verbally assaulted on and off the court, elbowed in the face, fouled with the grace of a flying anvil, and still hasn't responded with anything more than a polite thank you at press conferences. Meanwhile, this reporter breaks into a digital panic attack every time someone in the comment section asks him to consider reality. What's wild is how this guy has never, and we mean never, called out any of the blatant cheap shots aimed at Clark. Not one. Not when she was shoved, not when she was fouled like someone was trying to snatch her soul, not when she got body checked during layups. Nada, zilch. But suddenly he's got enough energy to write a 1,200-word essay about how her supporters are the problem. Let's talk about that supporter base, shall we? Because the way this man talks about Clark's fans, this is Orbit's level spinning. He's twisting himself into such rhetorical pretzels, we're surprised Auntie Anne's hasn't filed a trademark complaint. Every time someone tries to talk actual basketball, this man redirects the conversation like a dad avoiding feelings. Let's not talk about how she got flattened with no foul. Let's talk about how you're a bad fan for noticing.
Nasty. If y'all don't know who Scott Agnes is, he's a guy that's he's very close to the team. He gets a lot of access. He's in the practices. He's interviewing the players at practice. He's interviewing the players pre-game, post-game. He is very close with the team and has a lot of access to the players and the team.
Even more pathetic is the way this has become a cottage industry of envy. The WNBA has been begging for mainstream attention for decades. Now they finally get someone who brings in eyeballs, sponsorships, ticket sales, and jersey orders that crash websites. And somehow, the biggest crime she's committed is being too successful. This whole thing is starting to feel like that one coworker who never does their job, then gets mad when someone else gets promoted. Except in this case, instead of office drama, we've got elbows, ejections, and a very angry man with a WordPress login. And while we're at it, let's look at the phrase, "she's not the only rookie." Wow, thank you for that revelation. Yes, there are other rookies in the league. We're aware, some of them are fantastic. If you buy a Caitlin Clark jersey, you're one emotional tweet away from being labeled a cult leader. And let's not forget the grandest irony of all. These reporters and pundits who spend all day criticizing Caitlin Clark's fans are only relevant right now because of Caitlin Clark. If she weren't in the league, half of them would be tweeting about pickleball tournaments and Waffle House reviews.
The ignorance is loud here, folks. They're only there for Clark. Boy, you stepped in it. But that dark side can easily seep into the team. The Caitlin Clark fans, the dark side. Because they're very passionate about a player, and yes, they've put their money where their mouth is. So these people, these fans, feel invested.
This man literally built a platform out of not supporting her. He's the anti-fans fan club president. His whole brand is shouting into the void about how she's overrated and then gaslighting anyone who points out the obvious, that she's not just good, she's revolutionary. Let's be honest, if Caitlin Clark played in a league where professionalism was the standard and favoritism wasn't the entire marketing strategy, she'd be in MVP conversations. But instead, she's out here surviving defensive ambushes like she's auditioning for Gladiator while refs sip herbal tea and stare at the scoreboard. The worst part? Every time she shows humility, class, and restraint, things that are supposed to be positive traits, somehow that gets twisted too. Why doesn't she fight back? Why is she always so quiet? Because maybe, just maybe, she knows the microscope is already pointed directly at her face and blinking red. She doesn't need to feed the trolls, especially not ones who clearly haven't watched a full game without bias since flip phones were in fashion. Just so you know, a woman brings millions of dollars of value into a league that couldn't sell out a concession stand 5 years ago. Fans finally engage with women's basketball on a national level, and the response from certain corners of media? You guys clap too loudly. Please stop liking her. This would be funny if it wasn't so utterly pathetic.
Indiana Fever reporter Scott Agnes has decided that now would be the time, now that the Fever have won a few games, now would be the time to attack Caitlin Clark fans. While, of course, and I'm not even going to go through because some of them are really nasty.
Caitlin Clark didn't just make the WNBA relevant, she made it unavoidable. ESPN covers her like she's a presidential candidate. Opposing arenas cheer when she hits threes. Cities see spikes in tourism when the Fever come to town. But sure, let's talk about how the fans are the problem. Not the elbow throwing, not the no calls, not the league's refusal to protect their most valuable asset, not even the laughably biased officiating that would make a soccer referee blush. No, it's those dang fans buying t-shirts and filling stadiums. You know what? If that's the dark side, then pass the lightsaber. Because this version of the Force is generating revenue, growing the sport, and giving young girls a reason to dream bigger. Meanwhile, our dear reporter can continue typing away in the comfort of his own irrelevance, watching the sport he claims to love finally rise, just not in the way he wanted. One minute, Caitlyn splits defenders like Moses parting the Red Sea. Next minute, she's whistled for a travel that even her grandma would call generous. Meanwhile, opponents throw their elbows with the subtlety of a drunken rhinoceros. And crickets, not a peep. It's like they're treating the referees as if they're auditioning for America's funniest home whistleblows.
By off social media, do you mean that they don't read the notifications? Because they're all on social media, except for maybe Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Mitchell. You want me to believe, Brianna Turner is always on social media. You want me to believe that these players who are so addicted to the drama, who are so addicted to the outside noise, have gone off social media? Stop gaslighting us. We don't believe you. You need more people. We don't believe you. You need more people.
Let's not forget the creative foul calls that only apply to Caitlyn. Drive to the rim? That's a flagrant. Contest a three? That's a technical. Blink on defense? That's a review. It's almost impressive how consistently inconsistent they can be. At this point, you'd get a more balanced call from your toddler deciding who sits in the booster seat. And oh, the luxury of league rules, favoritism and racism, you say? More like a choose-your-adventure book where every path leads to making Caitlyn look like the bad guy. Got fouled? Replay her reacting under the microscope until it looks like a crime scene. She smiles after a clutch shot. Zoom in, slow motion, play ominous music.
Actually, now, you would think that sentence is actually setting up in defense of the Indiana Fever, right? Because when you're on the top of the mountain, when you're the GOAT at the top of the mountain, you are going to get all the arrows. You're going to get all the arrows. This is true in any sport. This is true in life in general. When you are successful, you become a target. It doesn't matter that you might have started at the bottom.
At least Darth Vader got a cool theme. But here's the kicker. Despite all this, Caitlin Clark bundles up every setback like it's Christmas morning. She shakes her head, jogs back on defense, and keeps putting up numbers that make calculators weep. And us fans, we're right there cheering because supporting excellence isn't a choice. It's compulsory. Which brings us back to our keyboard warrior reporter. He's probably at home polishing his I told you so trophy while Caitlyn is out there being the WNBA's MVP in everything but the final box score. To him, fans are the problem. To us, he's the comic relief, like that one uncle at Thanksgiving who insists gravy is a conspiracy. Stay tuned for the grand finale, where we roast this whole spectacle to a crisp and remind that in basketball, as in life, you don't get to pick the hero. She picks you.